Yeah, definitely. For this program, we do have certificates. You will be receiving it in, at least from 10 to 15 days, within 10 to 15 days. Yep. Good afternoon, madam. I think you are muted. You are muted. Your mic is muted.
Okay, is it on?
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
it's audible, audible. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I think they've all come back after the
Eh,
lunch.
After the lunch, yeah. Uh, Now we have 40 people as of now. I believe that everyone is going to join. And a lot of people are in the live stream, the other area.
Okay,
So I have invited nearly 250 people in this in this participatory webinar room,
Mhm.
and all the others towards the live stream.
Okay. So then we have accommodated all the 650.
Yes, yes, we have accommodated everyone.
And how was Sir's session?
So, ma'am, it was very good, and
Very
I
good.
mean, it's stretched, but I believe everyone it was knowledgeable, and everyone had benefited a lot.
And I think even the questions were good.
Yes, 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 it was
Very
perfect.
good
Yeah,
questions. Very good
it was
questions.
to the point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll wait for another 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah, yeah. So you will be the first one to address, or the other ma'am.
No, I'll take her.
Okay,
I've already told ma'am she'll come
okay,
at 3:30. 3:30.
okay. Perfect,
I told
perfect.
her my session was pushed.
Okay, right, ma'am. Right, right, right. I request all the participants not to present anything. Please click on the stop presenting button. So in between, if you are presenting something, it will affect the entire presentation process, entire webinar. So in case if during the presentation process, during the webinar, in case if you are presenting something, I will straight away have to remove you from the webinar, but I will uh, help you to rejoin also. So in between that, I can't ask to stop presentation, right? Good afternoon, everyone. Session 2 of International Seminar on Intellectual Property Right will commence shortly. Our scheduled time is at 2:30 p.m. and our resource person is already here, and we are expecting a little more participants by 2:30. Exactly by 2:35, we will start the sessions. We don't want to waste the time. And out of 250 people who were invited for this webinar, I believe that 124 had joined with us right now. So I'm waiting for the other people also. And more than 300 plus people, 300 plus people are into the live stream.
Anthony, can we start? Anthony's not there.
Sorry, madam, I was attending a call. Yeah. I think we can start the session.
Yeah.
Dear participants, we are continuing the session of the Intellectual Property Right International Seminar. The session two, we have basically we should add three faculties. I mean, three resource persons. We have adjusted ourselves in between the faculty. I mean, with the resource persons that Gifty ma'am and Binu ma'am will share the syllabus between what is patent foundation, what is patent, the foundation and fundamentals of the patent law will be dealt by the Gifty woman ma'am. And later, at the end of the day, Dr. Binu Purnamodhan Cholail will deal with copyright protection and overview. and we have some technical difficulties with the introduction. I mean, with the Advocate S. Sasi Sushant. He won't be joining with us, but the topics will be shared between the resource person regarding the trademark. In case if you have in general any queries or something, will be shared by both the faculties. Request Soha Raghav to stop presenting. Click on the stop presenting button, Soha. Shobha. I'm sorry, Shobha. Uh, Shobha Raghav, could you please click on the stop presenting button in your mobile so that uh, the webinar will be accessible to everyone. Okay, or else you will be the center of uh, focus. I require the faculty have to be the center of the point, or else it will be difficult for us to uh, continue. I'm really sorry. Yeah, thank you. She have cancelled the presentation. Request all the participant not to present anything in between. And request all the participants to stay muted. Moving to my responsibility of welcoming our beloved resource person of the day, Dr. Gifty Woman. Dr. Gifty is now serving as an associate professor in the Government Law College of Ernakulam district, and she is going to handle the topic what is patent, foundation and fundamentals of patent law. She is a person with a high value, and it's our pleasure that she was in charge of the entire program. And when I requested Gifty ma'am whether we could organize an IPR program, she was the one who take the pain to identify the faculties and the resource persons, and she shared an extremely big responsibility with the St. Albert's College to run this program, and she herself ensured that all the resource persons to be here, and she directly contacted everyone and assisted us to ensure the smooth process of this program. So on behalf of St. Albert's College Autonomous and the Albertian Center for Human Resource Development and Research, I cordially welcome our beloved resource person for the session 2 and the talk 2, Dr. Gifty Thomas Woman, to continue the session, to take the session. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Shine. It's been a pleasure to be associated with you, and let me thank the Lord for making this happen, and thank you. And it's a privilege that I could possibly share the dais with Dr. Rao. We've never met physically, but we know each other very good. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Now, I'm not going to take much of a time. I'm going to move directly into the subject. I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Perfectly, ma'am.
Perfect. Oh. Now, sir has already given you an overview, so I'm not going into those areas. I'll just go into the patent. Now, what is a patent? Actually, we all understand that patent is something where you have a claim over it, either a product or a process. Now, the term patent means, as a sir also referred, it is an exclusive ownership, just like when you buy a property, a landed property. You don't get a license, you get the full rights over it. So therefore, you get the ownership title over it. So in the same way, when I make a product, a new product or a process, and I apply, now what I get as a patent is actually an exclusive right. No one can take. It's an exclusive right means I'm excluding the whole world out of my particular product or patent, product or process, whichever I'm taking patent. Now the basic question arises is, when I have made a product or a process, it's not like the property we buy, because that belongs to the government. But this is my exclusive investment. I have used my intellectual property. I have used my resources. And why should I ask the government the permission? Now, that is the first basic question which would arise into the mind of any one of us. Because this is my property. No one has contributed anything to it. So then why should I take permission from the government? It is mine. Now, this is the first basic question. Second question, which would normally arise to a student, to any person who is in the field of scientific inventions, is that why should the government intervene in this? Thirdly, now do I have this right for life, or is there any limitation? Now, these are the three basic things which would normally arise. So first, I would like to answer the first question. The first question is, when you're making a product, it might be in the lab, it might be anywhere. If you're making a product or a process, okay, yes. When I'm making a product, when I'm investing in a product or a process, I have exclusive rights. Remember one thing, I have exclusive rights. It is absolutely my option whether I should go for a patent or not. The problem why we go for patent is because we are afraid that someone might take it away from us. That normally happens. Anyone who is in the scientific field knows that when the moment a formula comes into appearance and your people who are associated with you, they get a hint of it, they can possibly go and take a patent before you actually even think about it. So because that possibility is there, that is the reason why an option to get a patent is given. That is, so the option, no one forces you, believe me, no one forces you. If you don't want to go for a patent, you need not go for a patent, but provided you are able to protect your product and process from invasion. Now, if you are able to succeed, there are many, like you have in the case of KFC, you have Coca-Cola. They are covered under trade secrets in America, but in India we don't have any provision which we can give them a protection. But they are able to maintain it. There are certain healing processes we have been known in Hyderabad and certain other parts of the country, which they don't want to reveal it to the government. They don't want a patent. They don't want anything on it. Am I audible, Anthony?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Is it clear? Am I clear?
Yes, yes, it's very clear.
Okay.
It's very clear.
Okay. So in those cases, if you don't go for a patent, it is fine. You can have it lifetime. So second thing, that is, the problem is if you're afraid that someone would take it from you, in those cases, you can go for a patent. When you go for a patent, because you've been given a protection from the government, you have to sacrifice some part of it. So in those cases, when you're applying for the patent, you have to go through a process of Indian Patent Act. And the third is, when you get a patent, in the first day I said, if you don't go for a patent, you have a lifetime rights over it. But when you go for a patent, you sacrifice, that is your right, lifetime right is limited to 20 years. So after 20 years, that particular product or process which you have invented goes into the public domain. That means your competitors can come and take that process and product and they can sell it. Of course, at competitive prices, that can be done. So these are the three areas. I've just given an idea about what is the importance of patent. So the importance of patent comes only if you want to go for want your product or process to be patented. Now, as far as Patent Act is concerned, how do we apply? What is it? Where is the basic eligibility for? Can everyone apply? No. Now it says any new invention. That means something which is already in the public domain, which you know already, and you just make some amendments on it. You cannot. So it has to be a product or a process. No formulas, no scientific principles, only product or process. So it has to be a new invention which involves an inventive step. That is very important, which involves an inventive step. And secondly, it should be capable of industrial application. So what do you mean by industrial application? That means it should be something which can be traded with. If you cannot trade it, if there is no point of bringing a marketability of it, then the Patent Act has nothing to do with it. So these are the two criteria. First is it should be an invention, new invention. It should have it should have an inventive step, and it should be capable of being traded. Now, what do you mean by an inventive step? Now, as I told you, inventive step doesn't mean you simply amend something which is available. Like example, you have a fan. I'm just giving you an illustration, and you attach lights to it, and you say, see, it's a patent. No one has brought anything in that nature, and I should get a patent and apply for it. No, you cannot, because there is nothing inventive about it. Anyone, maybe I or you might feel something inventiveness is there, but a person who is skilled in the art or skilled in that particular technology of making mechanical goods, he would know very well that nothing unique about it. Another better example that I would like to give you is a pen. You imagine you make a pen which is connected to a computer, and the moment that pen sees the question, you just scribble on this question, and the pen gets connected to the computer, to the net, and gives you all the answers. And maybe you can amend some, and that your answer is perfect. So it might look unique to us, but a person who knows software and hardware of the computer, this is nothing unique about it. So when you talk about an inventive step, the inventive step should be something which is non-obvious to a person skilled in that particular technology. Not something like a layman like us, but something who knows this technology. So only if there's an inventive step, and only if it is capable of industrial application, can you think about even getting a patent. So there are, when we enlarge it, we say is, first criteria, there should be novelty. Second, it should be invention. Third, they should be non-obvious to the people in that particular trade. And fourthly, it should be capable of industrial application. Now, even if all these 4 criteria are met, the question is, if you want to get a patent under Indian Patent Act, this is not enough, because this is only your eligibility to enter into it. When you enter into it, there are certain criteria being brought in under Section 3 of the Patent Act. It says, if your patent or if your product or process falls under any of these 15 categories, even if you have the eligibility, that is, the 4 qualifications are there, we're sorry, we cannot give you patent, you're not eligible. Now the question is, what are these points? Now this is very important, because many a times, okay, can I? Okay.
Please continue.
Yeah. Okay. There was some duplication. Okay. Now, in section 3, it talks about 15 criteria. The first criteria it says is that when your invention process is frivolous, and it claims anything obviously contrary to the established principles in nature. Example, if you remember the case of Ramat Pilla, who had said that he could make petrol out of water years back. And finally, it was realized it's frivolous, because the committee of scientists realizes he cannot possibly do it. So that is known as a frivolous invention, because no one can make petrol out of water. So you are trying to go contrary to the naturally established principles in nature. In nature means the environment around us. Like example, the principle of life and death, the principle of procreation of generations. You are trying to make a change in the seeds, where you are not allowing them to undergo the process of germination and procreation. You are disturbing the nature. In those cases where your invention, which you say is a product or a process, is actually frivolous, and it goes against the principles of natural law around you, then you cannot get patent. One of the perfect examples I would give you is an American case, Funk versus Callow. This is in 1948. Now, the teachers and students who are in botany, they would be knowing the leguminous plants, they have this system of, they have this nitrogen fixing bacteria in the nodules, in the root nodules. You have the rhizobium, if I'm not wrong, rhizobium. Now, there's a species, in the species of rhizobium, you have different strands of rhizobium. One particular strand of rhizobium will not do good for all the leguminous plants. It might just go for 1 or 2 of them. So what happened in this particular case is, one person, way back in 1948 in America, yes, what he did is he concentrated all these rhizobium strands together in such a way that the mix was supplied to the people, and they could use it, and the one which goes along with that particular leguminous plant that they have, it flourishes, and the nitrogen fixation takes place. So he took a patent for it. He wanted a patent for it, and the Supreme Court of US said, this is something which is already there in the nature. You're doing nothing new. What you've done is only brought in these products together, these aggregation. You just brought them together, so we cannot give you patent for this. Another case you have is the case of myriad case, which I will talk. Myriad case I'll be talking later on also, and we'll wait for it. Now coming to the second barrier. Second barrier is the invention in use or the commercial use of it would go against public morality or public order, and it would cause serious prejudice to human, animal life, health, or to the environment. That means you are manipulating nature. It simply means you are manipulating the nature, you're corrupting the plants, animals, human beings, and in such a way you're corrupting the nature itself. So any invention, because that would definitely go with public morality and public order. That is the case, example, in the case of cloning, where they're trying to bring in a replica or genetic mutation, like in the genetically modified seeds and all those things. What are they trying to do? They are again trying to bring in a duplication, or they're trying to put an end to the termination, the end to the seed bringing rise to new plants, because they are manipulating the DNA in it. So these are areas where you're manipulating. So you cannot get patent under the Indian Patent Act. Now, one possible case in this case is, again, I'll talk about myriad case only. In myriad case, what actually happened was there was a series of experiments had taken place in the universities in America, where they were working on different diseases like cancer and all. And what they were doing was they were genetically modifying the cells in such a way that they could overcome that disease. And what they did is, at that time, the Supreme Court of US was not aware of it. They were taking patent on these cells. They had changed the cell substance and the whatever thing, and the cell was something different. And as a result, they took patent on that cell, human cells. Okay. Now, this matter came in 2014, the 2013. This matter came to the Supreme Court, where in case of an ovarian cancer, if you remember the case of Angelina Jolie's case in Hollywood actress who had a genetic ovarian cancer problem from a mother. So she had to undergo this, and as a result, this came into the media, and a human rights activist group brought in this case before the Supreme Court, and that is where the Supreme Court actually came to know that there were a series of cases where these scientists and lab people were taking patent over human cells, which they had changed to overcome the diseases. The court came very much strongly against it in 2013, and they said this cannot happen because this is something which is there in the nature. You have not created the cell. You have changed the cell composition to the benefit of the person. But as a result, you don't get rights. You don't get rights over that cell. You are not the owner of that cell because you never created that cell. So these are the instances where the dispute comes in, whether you can take from nature, amend it, and make it yours. Now, the third is the mere discovery. The first is very clear. First is you are bringing in, you are going contrary to the natural law. Third is you are making something which manipulates the nature. Third is mere discovery. You discover something of a scientific principle, or this formulation or discovery of any living thing or non-living substance occurring in the nature. So what you're doing is only in discovery. You are not inventing anything in it. Example, Sir Isaac Newton. He brought in the formula, action-reaction, the Newton's principle. He never took a patent for it. Einstein's principle of E is equal to mc squared. These are all principles on which certain things can be done. But those certain things are done by somebody else. So you are what these scientists have done is they've only discovered the principle, the underlying principle, the formulas which can possibly bring in future the product or the process. So no product has come into vogue, no process has come into vogue. The rocket technology came in only after a long time after Einstein brought in this principle. So they don't have any rights on it. What they get is maximum an acknowledgement. The papers are published. They might get Nobel Prizes, and they have also got it for that. So the mere discovery of a scientific principle, because that is already in the nature. You're not inventing. You're not doing anything in it. What is there in the nature, just picking it up and showing it to the people. In that case, it is only a mere discovery, no invention. In the same way, you bring in a plant or an animal or anything in the nature and you say, this is there in nature, here, I give it to you. It's only a discovery. So discoveries don't come under the platform of invention. The fourth is the mere discovery of a new form. This clause is very important because this is where the pharmaceutical companies work on. The mere discovery of a new form of a known substance, which does not result in the enhancement of the known efficacy of that substance, or the mere discovery of any new property or new use for a known substance, or the mere use of a known process, machine, unless such new, okay, unless such
Ma'am, hello, ma'am. Sorry, uh, you have to unmute yourself. Accidentally, I have muted you. In between people, when they come in, I normally mute the people. So accidentally, I have just muted you.
Okay, is it okay now?
Perfect. Yeah.
Where
Yes.
did you miss on? Which part did you miss on?
The last part. Just the last 7.
Okay, I'm not. I'm not reading the section. I'm just going to tell you what it simply means when you find a new, the mere discovery of a new form of a known substance. That is, the example, you have a medicine for diabetes, and you realize this medicine for diabetes can also be used for HIV virus. Now there is no invention in it. It is only a discovery. So you have discovered that this medicine is also, or can also be used for something else. So in that cases, you don't get any patent for it. But at the same time, you add something to it. That is, a new reactant is added to it, and its chemical composition differs. And as a result, its efficacy increases, and it can be used for, let's say, some other disease like cancer. In that case, yes, you are a potential potential person who can get a patent. So therefore, a mere discovery of a new form of a known substance which does not result in the enhancement of the efficacy without adding any new reactant to it, or it has not given rise to any new product. What do you mean by new product? Not the same product, something new has come into it. So if these two things are not there, that is, first, new product has come into being instead of the old product. Secondly, no new reactant has been added to it, and it has not ended up in increasing the efficacy, then you cannot go for a patent. So this is what normally the pharmaceuticals do. I'm giving you live cases. In case of Novartis, the famous case of Novartis is an Indian case when Novartis had in 2009, they already had a patent on Glivec, which was, I think it is for diabetic. Diabetic, they already had this medicine, and what they did was they changed a little bit on it. And because see, the problem of patent is you get for only 20 years. So no pharmaceutical wants to lose its rights after 20 years. They want to be in the market. So what they do is, this is also called the evergreening process. So evergreening process is, you add some new reactant to it. The basic qualities don't change at all. And as a result, the efficacy increases. Like in the sense, you have a paracetamol, and you add some new reactant to it. As a result, it's doing the same function of a paracetamol, but maybe paracetamol would reduce your temperature within 6 hours. This would do it within 4 hours. So the efficacy is increasing. So such instances would come up, and because they don't want to lose control on the medicine. So after, just before the 20 years is finishing off, by 15th year, they will try to bring in a new addition to it and say this is a new product. This is called patent of addition. This is only available to those people who already have patent. So they get a privilege. They can increase the efficacy of it, and if they're successful, they get a patent of addition for another few years. But in case they are not able to satisfy the controller of patent about it, then they don't get it. So this is known also in normal language, we say, is the evergreening of patents. So this is exactly what Novartis tried to do. They added a new thing to it, and they said it has increased the efficacy. What the Supreme Court stated, the patent controller objected to it. He said you cannot give it. They went to the Madras High Court, and finally they came to the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court of India said, under Section 3D Section 3D, to be very specific, it is only a, you have not done anything. It's only a mere discovery. You have not done anything. New product has come into it. What you have done is you just added some derivatives of it. As a result, it has the efficacy has little bit increased, but not to that level that it is actually required under the Patent Act. So in that particular case, the court did not allow it. So that was in the case of Novartis case. The case could not, and 2012 they lost the case. And after that, Novartis said that we would leave India, but as a result, but they never left India. They would never leave India, I believe. Now, this is as far as the 4 ingredients are concerned. Now, fourth disqualification. The 5th disqualification is a substance obtained by a mere admixture, resulting only in the aggregation of the properties of the components thereof, or a process for producing such substance. So this is exactly the case which I gave you about the fan and about the pen also, where it is only an aggregation, where you are bringing in 2 or 3 things together, just like salt and pepper. You mix up salt and pepper and you eat it. You can identify the taste of the salt as well as the pepper. No third element is produced out of it. No chemical reaction takes place. Anyone eating can realize it is salt and pepper. So there is only an aggregation. There is no invention. So this is not an invention. But some people say it's an invention. As I said, in the case of a fan, in case of these things, they might prove. There have been cases, if you look into long back in 1950s, there was a case in India where they produced instrument it was a process actually in the industry where the old vessels which had lost its the shine of it. If you remember, the mercury cleaning and all, we used to have it long back, and now mercury, or what is it? They used to clean. People used to come and do it. These vessels, what they did it, they had a machinery installed in it, and these vessels would be put there, and they would roll, and at the same time, the mercury would be sprayed on it, and as a result, they become new. It was only assembling of gadgets, but they were able to get patent. They got patent. They didn't get actually patent. They got under the Designs Act, because we didn't have at that time patent in this form. So, but later on, after a few years, another company objected to it and said that how can you give them design? This is something which every person knows about it, and they cannot be given. And the court took away the designs privilege from them. So one thing you should realize is, if you get a 20 years for patent, if after the 10th year someone comes and tells disputes and says that this is something in the public domain, there's every possibility that your patent is taken away. So that problem is always there in the case of patent law, because this is a privilege given to you. Now, so substance obtained by mere admixture is disqualified. The next is the mere arrangement or rearrangement or duplication of known devices, each functioning independently of one another in a known way. Yes, this is also the example that I gave fits into that also. That is the machinery, it disqualifies. Now, next is agriculture or horticulture. Yeah, any method of agriculture or horticulture where you have grafting or anything like that, where which is a process which where you are using your technique, your know-how, which has been carried on from generations. We all know it. You're working on the plants and animals which are existing, which is something which is in the nature. You're doing nothing. They are not invented by you. In that case, agriculture or horticulture, if you do something like that, it doesn't come under the Patent Act. Next is medical, surgical, curative, or psychological processes, anything which enables a person to be free of diseases or increases the enhancement of the life of a person, a plant, animal, human being, anything. Like we go to the doctor, we get treated, we go for Ayurvedic, we go for homeopathy, we go to the people go to the psychiatry. All these are only processes. These are processes in the sense there's no invention. So there is no invention. We can understand there is no invention in it. So just because a doctor is very good in his surgery, he cannot take a patent on it, because there is no product in it. I remember someone asked a question to Sir whether a software can be given a patent. No, it cannot be given patent simply for this reason, because of the software. There is no product and process in it. There's no product to be specific. But when it is combined with the, as sir also, that is exactly what sir said, when it is combined with the hardware, then it takes the form of a product and a process. That is, you can see it visibly, the machine is available, and then in those cases, it is patentable. So patent only talks about something which is tangible, the intangible converted into tangible. Now, plants, next is plants and animals, seeds. None of these can be given patent, but there is an exception. The exception comes in the case of microbiology. Now, how did this exception? You would ask why, because that is also there in the nature. Well, this is where, as sir was also talking, a lot of politics comes in between this. Now, we also know in the case of 1948 Funk versus Callows case, they said something there, bacteria cannot be given patent. But later on in 1980, sir also referred to that, Diamond versus Chakrabarti. Now, Diamond versus Chakrabarti, he was Ananda Chakrabarti. He had worked on a microorganism. He's really worked on that microorganism. The microorganism was he had changed the cells, the structure, the thing, what do you call? I don't know exactly the matter inside in such a way that this particular microorganisms could eat away the oil spills. The oil spills created by the spilling of oil in the high seas, this was creating a lot of problem in the high seas as it was creating pollution, and the animals and plants were dying because of it. It was creating heavy pollution, and that is when Chakravarti brought in this microorganism. He amended the microorganism. The microorganism, as was its function earlier, did nothing of the sort. Because Ananda Chakravarti changed the functioning of it by adding something into it and subtracting certain things, this particular microorganism started doing a different function altogether, which was contrary to what it was actually doing in nature. So when he came for patent, Diamond was the registrar of patent. He said, no, this is something which is naturally occurring and we cannot give you patent for it. Against this, he went to the court, and the Supreme Court was actually a little hesitant. But as I said, you are not sure actually sometimes what really changes the thinking of the judge. At that time, though he did not allow Chakravarti rights over the microorganism, he said you have no patent over the microorganism, but over the amendment that you've done, over that thing, that is, no one else can do it apart from you, over that you're given patent. So in effect, what happened was that technology, that particular the microorganism itself happened to be, he himself happened to have complete rights over it. Now that was the beginning of the thinking process, and people started thinking, the scientists started thinking, and they said, why not? Why can't microorganisms be given? And one of the reasons why what was argued was that if you are not giving a motivation to the scientists, and who will work on microorganisms? Because as it is, working on microorganisms is very difficult, and microorganism was the want of the time at that time, because there were a lot of things which were being done through microorganisms. So as a result, this discussion came at the WTO level, and they decided, okay, fine. What we can do is we can make a depository wherein they can, whoever amends the microorganism to the benefit of the people, they can be deposited there, and maybe they can talk about some royalties and all later on. But it went beyond all this. And finally, when in 1994, because of the pressure of many multinationals and universities and scientific field, finally they said, microorganisms can be given patent. So any person working on microorganism can get patent. So that was an exclusion given. Plants and animals, seeds and all, none of these you can get patent. But microorganism, though naturally occurring, if a scientist works on it and makes it into something, because it's becoming a product which is beneficial to the people, you can get exclusive rights over it. So that is in case of Diamond versus Chakravarti. That was a starting point of this thing, and finally it came to 1994. And as a result, even in India, you find that there was a case just in 2006, if I'm not mistaken, a case where they brought in certain matters like this into the Calcutta High Court, and following pursuit, Calcutta High Court gave rights over that particular matter to that company. Now, next is in case of mathematical processes. Mathematical processes and business processes, as we know, these are all processes which are not a product. It's not a product. It's not an invention. So therefore, they don't come under the ambit of Patent Act. Next is literary activities. Literary activities, again, it doesn't come in the form of a product. It is not an invention, to be frank. So when it is not an invention, it's very clear it doesn't come within the purview of the Indian Patent Act. It comes under Copyright Act, which Binu ma'am will be taking in the next session. Next is scheme of performing mental act. That is also not an invention, and therefore that falls under the ambit of copyright. Then next is topography of integrated circuits. Again, the same concept comes in aggregation. Aggregation of apparatus, aggregation of different types of things together. There is no invention in it, and therefore it doesn't come under the purview of the Patent Act. Next, last is, which would be of great interest to you, is invention, which in effect is traditional knowledge, or what is an aggregation or duplication of known properties of traditionally known component or components. So that means traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge can be in the form of product, can be in the form of processes. Any traditional knowledge which is taken to be a traditional knowledge, once your invention comes anywhere near a traditional knowledge, you can no more take patent in that thing. So that is completely exempted out of the purview of Patent Act. That is exactly the matter which, in the case of turmeric and neem, which was brought to the Supreme Court of US, and actually patent was already given for turmeric under the US patent. And finally, when we came to know about it, even Basmati was given. So we fought the case, saying that it is a common heritage of India. Turmeric is something which every household knows what are the uses of turmeric. So the US government doesn't have to tell us that turmeric can be used as an antibody or as an antibiotic. We know it, and Indian government therefore said it is something in the traditional knowledge. It is in the public domain. It's a common heritage, and therefore Indian government has rights over it. No other government. It's not the government. It's a person. No person can take those rights. That is after that India started becoming aware of it. In the case of geographical indication, the basmati rice also, geographical indication is something different from traditional knowledge, because geographical indication, as the name suggests, is something which is the origin of one particular area, like Kanchipuram. Like Kanchipuram silk is made in Kanchipuram. Madurai has a different, Kashmir silk is different. So they're all silk, but the brand of silk, the silk thread, and maybe the worms that they've been used for it, the species differ. So therefore, because the species differ, the silk also is known by a different name. So though you call them silk by name generically, but if you look into each and every part, each and every silk, it is a different silk. So Kanjipuram can take a geographical indication. The Kashmiri silk can take it. In Kerala, we can go for tea. We can go for Munnar tea. We can go for eucalypt oil. We have the Darjeeling tea. So these are all exclusively in that particular area. The moment the soil, the climatic conditions changes, the subject becomes different. So geographical indication is connected to a particular geographical place. It cannot be dislocated, and that is exactly what was argued in the case of basmati rice also. Basmati rice, they had taken and made it Texamati, because Texas also has similar temperate climate like Punjab, and so they were able to grow there. But what the argument was this is a geographical indication of Punjab, and it cannot be taken away from Punjab. Even Kerala cannot take it. So it only belongs to Punjab. So only Punjab can have the geographical indication regarding basmati rice. So that is as far as basmati rice. This is to protect our common heritage. Now this is as far as these are the 15 exclusion clauses, which these are the 15 disqualifications. Even if You have something novel in your mind, or the product or process you have made is an invention. It has a non-obvious character. Its industrial capabilities are there, but still, if it falls under any of these, it does not come under the purview of Patent Act, and you cannot get a patent. I think it's very clear. These points are very clear. Now, coming to how do you go for a patent? Now, the first thing is when you apply, Section 6 onwards talks about how you apply for a patent. Now, the patent, as I said, is an exclusive right. So, therefore, the person who is the exclusive owner alone can apply for it. It can be one or two owners together, they can apply it. So, Section 6 says the true and the first inventor applies for it. And it is always advisable that, because in case of patent, there is a problem in the sense you are given 12 months to give in your whole formula to the government. So that means if you have applied on 1st February 2018, by that within 12 months you are supposed to give your full formula, workable formula, the easiest workable formula, and it should work, and the product should come into the hands of the committee appointed by the government. Only then it becomes product or process. So therefore, if you've applied, let's say 1st Feb 2018, 12 months starts running from it, and if the 12 months finishes, your product is not ready, you don't get the application itself is rejected. But it is always safer once you're working on a product or a process, if after 2 or 3 months, or maybe after 6, 7 months, I'm talking to those who are into research, if after 6 or 7 months you feel that this can possibly do something good, or this can possibly reach a good product or a process which is new, if you have that feeling, then it is always best, even before you share to your guide, even before you share to anybody you know, it is always best to go and apply. And why you apply is to keep your patent safe. If it doesn't materialize, well and good, you've got nothing to lose. But then if it does, then you don't have to fight against anyone. So if you think it is something, you go and apply. So 1st Feb, let's say 2018, you applied. Let's say someone who knows about it has also applied it. Let's say in March 2018, and your product does not come into picture, but this person somehow gets your information and he applies, he can get patent. So that possibility is always there. So therefore, it is always best to make a few patent applications on. It's a very expensive process, but that is only if you are very sure that it can come into picture. So that is why, in case of Indian citizens who are applying under the Indian Patent Act, you have the privilege that when you apply for a patent, you give in the provisional specification. The provisional specification is you just give an abstract. When you give an abstract, you are not giving the whole concept. You said, this is what I'm thinking, and I think this can come, and you work upon it. And at the end of 12 months, before the 12 months finishes, you have to give in your complete specification. So this is a privilege which is given to an Indian citizen. But if a foreign citizen applies in India, in case he applies, he does not get this privilege. When he applies for a patent, he has to give the provisional, he has to give the complete specification at the time of applying for patent. So he doesn't get any time period. The moment he applies for patent, he has to give in the whole complete specification. Now, this patent application under the Patent Act has to go through a patent agent. So talked about patent agent. Patent agent is a person who has a science background, normally BSc, and he would pass the examination put forward by the Indian under the Indian Patent Act, by the government, by the controller of patent, and he would have cleared it. And he is the person through whom you should go, because we don't know whether we can get patent or not. The moment the patent agent gets it, there is the website of the Indian patent in India. The website itself gives you a series of names, so you can check whether your product or patent process comes into any of these. It gives you the things which are the patent things all over the world, so you can make a bare scrutiny of it, and the patent agent also does it. And only after that scrutiny, that application is given to the government, to the registrar of patent. Now, once it is given to the registrar of patents, within a period of 18 months, that is after the provisional specification has been given, after the period of 18 months, you can make an application that now my product should be published, because without publication, no one will come to know. Now it is only with the government. So when it is published, that is, it is brought in the Gazette, only then oppositions can come against it. That means only then the government can know and you can know. Apart from all those people who have been given the patent, there may be others who say that this is in the public domain, or we already have patent, but government doesn't know about it. So they can bring in opposition saying that you cannot give him the patent because we already have it. It is something which we have already taken patent. So oppositions are invited, and after the oppositions are invited, the committee of scientists, people set up by the registrar of patent, they sit over it, and only after they finalize it and they find that the product is fit to be given patent, only then patent is given. So sometimes this whole process may take more than 2 years from the date on which, that is 1st Feb 2018, you would have given the application. By the time you get the patent, it might be 2020. Why? Because all this process takes time. So, the question is, when do you get the patent? When you get the patent, is it the date? That is 20 years. The question is 20 years. The 20 years starts from when? Is it from the date on which you were granted patent, that is in Feb 1, 2020, or is it from February 1, 2018? Now, the law says the date of patent is the date on which you applied for it. That means straight you lose 2 years. So date of patent is 1st Feb 2018. So from 1st Feb 2018, your time starts running. So now if you're getting the patent in 2020, you are getting literally only 18 years to actually function it, work upon it as an industrial product. Now this is as far as, and even after, as I said in that particular case, even after you get the patent, oppositions can come. And if oppositions are justified, you can possibly be taken away. So that problem will always be there. And after 20 years, this product, that is the whole formula, will be in the registrar of Indian patent, and any competitive person who wants to produce it can make an application and even get it. So now after 20 years, it becomes a public document. Okay, so once it becomes a public document, you don't have any exclusive rights over it. So it becomes a public property. So that is as far as patent is concerned. Now, once you get the patent, what are the rights? You can either work upon it on your own self, or you can give the rights to someone else. You can give it as a license. You can give it for a certain period of time. You can divide that particular right into several small rights and give to different people. You can give it for lifetime. That is absolutely the choice. But whatever agreement you enter, that agreement has to be given to the registrar of patent. So therefore, the government takes a very important role in regard to patent. In patent, the government sees to it how the patent gets transferred, gets to you, and how it is transferred to the another person. So nothing can be kept secret. You cannot transfer it to someone without telling the government. No. All this has to be shown to the government. Now, a very important part, which Sir also referred to, is regarding compulsory licensing. Now, this comes to, as I said, regarding section 3D, which I was talking to you, where the pharmaceutical company, because the biggest problem we have is with the pharmaceutical companies, because they don't want to lose hold on the product, especially if the product has gained or has been used, by the doctor, through the doctors, by a lot of patients. So we have actually, why we brought compulsory licensing is there in Article 31 in the GATT agreement, and India was thinking of including it or not, and that is where you had we were just thinking whether to include or not. In 2005, around that period, the HIV AIDS patient and the NGO supporting them came strongly against the government's move and said you have to make provision for compulsory licensing. You cannot let the Indian public be put at the disposal of the multinationals, because medicines will become very expensive and people cannot afford it. We don't have a social security measure, and therefore there should be compulsory licensing should be included in the act, because compulsory licensing is not a provision which is included in many developed countries in the Patent Act. So India, because of that pressure, brought in the compulsory licensing that is under Section 84 of the Indian Patent Act. Now, what does this compulsory license say is it doesn't talk about medicine, it talks generally. It talks about that any product or process you've taken patent on, and after the lapse of 3 years, after you've got the patent, after the grant of the patent, after a lapse of 3 years, you are not using it, and your competitor uh, makes a complaint to the registrar of patents, saying that this person has been given the patent and he's not working it in India, or he is not working it in a reasonable way available to the public. That means the public is not getting any benefit out of it, the Indian public. Thirdly, he is not making it available at a reasonable, affordable rate to the public. So therefore, three elements, any one of these elements can be there. First is either it's not been worked in India, okay. Secondly, it is worked in India, but people are not getting reasonable benefited out of it. Thirdly, people are seeing to it, they're getting it, but they're not getting available it at a reasonable, affordable rate. If any of these qualifications are then your competitor can bring up a complaint, not to the court, but to the controller of patent, and say that this cannot go. You've given him a patent, something has to be done about it. Now, following this, the controller will ask the original patentee to bring in reasons why. What is your answer to it? And if he says, okay, I'll reduce the price, and the government is not happy with it, in those cases, if the government is not happy with his reply, then what the registrar of patent does it, that they can ask the competitor who brought in the original complaint, and ask him and the similar competitors whose names are available to bring in discussion on this matter, and to bring in the viable rates which they can possibly make the product so that it is available to the public. And if they bring in an affordable rate and the patent office is happy with it, then the patent is given to that particular person. It is a lease, so the royalty has to be given by the new user, because he's a license holder only, and to the original patentee. Now, this is what happened in the case of Natco Pharma versus Bayer. Bayer, we all know, is a very leading company in pharmaceuticals. Now, they had produced this product Nexavar, which was used for liver cancer, and they were selling that product in India for a patient. That is the cost for a patient for 1 month for the medicines itself is 2,80,000. So you can amount the exorbitant price that was there, and people could not afford it. And Natco Pharma, which went against it, and they went and they complained to the office itself, the patent office, saying that we are ready to make this product available. If the formula is given to us, we are ready to make this formula available. And the office asked what rate? They said we are able to give it for 8,800 per month for one patient. And that was a very good solution. 2,80,000. Bayer is saying, and Natco Pharma is giving it the same thing. The quotation they're giving is 8,800. And the patent office, they transferred. They gave the Natco Pharma the formula, and the Natco Pharma started producing it. And Natco was to give 6% of the royalty of the whole profits to the original patentee, that is Bayer. Bayer came against it to the appellate board in patent office itself, and the appellate board did not allow them, and they came to the Supreme Court of India, and the Supreme Court also held on to that ground and said, under the compulsory licensing provision, we have that privilege, and therefore Natco Pharma can continue making the product available at 8,800. So this is what we find in case of patent. So as we know, uh, the in case of pharmaceuticals, product earlier Indian government, Indian Patent Act 1970, talked only about process. It never discussed product. So therefore, what Indians used to do is they would, like its example, like it's a paracetamol or some other tablets, because we don't have product patent, we only process patent. What they would do is they will do reverse engineering, and they will find out what are the elements which make this product, and this product would be made through a different process, not the process which Americans or German pharmaceuticals make. They will make it through a different process, and they will get that process uh, patent under the Indian Patent Act. So what happened was, even before, maybe months after new medicine is found out in America or German or other countries, within months that medicine would be available in India at a very low rate, and the process would be absolutely different because we used to do that. So that was a big risk for, and the Americans came very much against it. They came to India. They could not fight the case in India because we never gave product patent. So if there was a product patent, the concept is that, okay, whatever process you adopt, if the end product is paracetamol, then you cannot produce it. But if the Indian government is not giving product patent under the Indian Patent Act, we are only offering process patent. No company, no multinational can fight a case and win in India. So that was a big handicap, and they could not take on to the Indian market. It was after the liberalization policy which came in India that, and even in 1994, though we were not willing, Indian government was literally, we had to sign the treaty. And it was 1994, though we signed the treaty, we did not amend our Indian Patent Act even till 1999. And they brought a big complaint against Indian government in the WTO, saying that Indian government is not bringing up, because we knew these risk factors are there, and India government was not, Indian society was not mature enough to cater to the needs of the people. So as a result, as Sir was also talking about, we were given 10 years. That means from 1994 to 2005. 2005, we had to anyway bring in the new patent. So we were given 10 years to see how Indian government or how rules can be changed in the India, so that by 2005 we had to bring in. But till 1999, we did not bring any changes. We did not even think about it. So in 1999, when this acquisition came against Indian government, that is when we brought in the amendment in 1999. And in that 1999, we allowed them the exclusive marketing rights. That is, patents were given only after 2005, because we had this privilege of 10 years being a developing nation. But we gave them the privilege, because not the privilege, that was a privilege which we had to offer under the patent regime under WTO. So we gave them the exclusive marketing rights. That is how Novartis actually stepped into India. Before 2005, they did not have to fulfill the parameters of the Indian Patent Act. They said they already had a patent in Switzerland, and therefore on the basis of that, we allowed them to market their products in India, and that is how they came into India. Many pharmaceutical companies came into India that way, but after 2005, that matter was closed. So after 2005, we moved into the Indian Patent Act, and now we follow very strict rules about it. Though Indian lawyers had a tough time to understand that, but today, I think we have very good lawyers, very eminent people who can argue the India's case. So therefore, today we can stand on a foot and say that this is our property and this is your property. We will not allow you to take patent over these areas. This is exclusive to India. So today, Indian regime is quite strong, and as we have Rao sir and many other eminent people who argue the matter for India, so I think India is doing well in the Indian Patent Act. So that finishes off, gives you an idea about the patent law. Yes, Shine?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for the wonderful session. I believe that now we can use the at least 5 to 10 minutes to address a questions of the participants, or in case if you want more clarifications in any of the point, you can use the chat box. You can use the chat box as a place to enter your views, or in case if you have any questions, also you can type in the chat box. Dear participants, please use wisely. We have less time, so we will be rushing with the questions. So in another 1 or 2 minutes, in case if we don't have the questions, we will move with the responsibility of thanking her for the wonderful session she led. Ma'am, what is the difference between invention and innovation?
Invention, yes,
Manoranjan.
yes. Invention is something which you are creating for the first time. Innovation is something is already there. You are making certain changes in it and bringing a newness in it. So the Patent Act talks about invention, but in certain cases, even innovations are allowed, provided that innovation is of such a range that it becomes a new invention altogether. Am I clear?
Perfect. Ma'am, then the next question is the difference between trademarks and the copyright.
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, but then Vinu ma'am can talk about. I'll give you idea about it. Okay, now copyright, as I told you, it for literary activities, software which is not tangible. Okay, music is not tangible. You hear it, you cannot hold it. Okay, cinema you can see it, but you cannot hold it. So copyright is something where there is no invention. There is no, you are not, the end result is not a product or a process. It is only an idea, a concept, which has brought, you have brought that into a picture as a cinema or a story or anything like that. Now, what is a trademark? A trademark is like you have Bata, you have Reliance. Trademark is where your brand. What is the brand? It is the brand name you give to your company. Sometimes you might not have a patent, but you can go for a trademark. Like you have these Ayurvedic products, none of them have the patent over it, but they are being trademarked under different names. You have so many different names. So it's a traditional knowledge which they are marketing as different trademarks, but they don't have patent over it. So patent, we need not be there when a trademark is concerned. Trademark is actually just a brand. You're selling a product in the market through a particular brand name. So trademark is also, as I said, trademark can also be registered. You can register a trademark, but in case of trademark, even if it's not registered, but if your product is acknowledged by the people and they know it, then no person who has a registered trademark in the same area can beat you. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The next question, ma'am, explain once why patents can be given to living plants and animal.
Why?
Patents can't be given to living plants and animals.
Okay. Because that is naturally occurring. You cannot act God, right? Only God is the inventor. So man cannot take rights over it. That is the answer to it.
The next question is, ma'am, is still we use compulsory license in India or not?
Yes, we do. That is exactly what I said. Section 84 talks about compulsory licensing, and India uses it very effectively. That is the reason why we have generic medicines now. If you go to the pharmaceuticals, you're giving these generic medicines. Remember the Amir Khan show, which something is coming into. Yes, if you remember the Amir Khan show where he said generic medicine should come in. So only the chemical compositions are important and not the name of the company. So that is generic medicine. So it is not the Bayer's product or Ranbaxy's product. It is the chemical composition of the medicine. So we have compulsory licensing that has enabled generic medicines to come into India.
So the next question is, ma'am, possibility for ethnic receipts or area-specific food or traditional foods. Maybe a patent.
Traditional
foods, food item.
Food item, traditional food item like masala doshas and all. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't because that's already there. You are only using the traditional knowledge. Like you have, you can make doshas in different fashions, but the basic content is always the same.
Okay.
So you're really making changes in it.
How much time it will it will take when we apply for patents and copyrights?
In case of patent, it might take around 2 years, 2.5 years. In case of copyright, you need not go for a copyright. See, when you are having this webinar conducted, my speech, Rauser's speech, we already have copyright over it. We don't have to go and claim copyright. It's no need of registration. Copyright means the moment it is published to the public. The moment it is published to the public, that is, if I alone made a song and I'm hearing it, I have no copyright. The moment I send it through internet to one of my friends or a group of friends, or I post it into Facebook, already I have a copyright. It is established. So, but where you have to take specific copyright is in the case of movies, in case of songs, which you know it will go for high publicity, and you might have difficulty fighting a battle. So you need a clear license in your hand. Otherwise, there's no need.
Ma'am, what about a book? Whether when a book is published, whether it's a trademark or copyright, ma'am, the same case of e-book also, the book and an e-book.
It is only a copyright.
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 Moving to the next question, what type of innovation can be patents?
Those innovations which establish them as a new novel patent as of a right. That means any person in that particular field who knows about that innovation says this is something different. If that is established, then you can get it. So as I said, when you apply, you might think, but it is the committee which sits over it, and the oppositions and all those things will be fighting battles against it, and only then it will be refined and come out. Sometimes you will not get a patent, sometimes you will get a patent. So it is not my decision, it is a decision of the patent office.
So as you said, there will be a time lag or time. The patent might take, the process might take 2 years. How can we overcome that type of time delays? Is there any possibility to overcome?
No, there is no possibility.
So the next question is, ma'am, can one get a patent for a name, just the name of an already existing product?
No. That doesn't come in patent or copyright. It comes in a trademark.
Trademark. Yeah.
You cannot take trademark of a name which is already there, because they have the names all there. So see, frankly speaking, you can use a name, but the problem comes in when the original owner of the name comes and fights the battle. You will have to give all the profits to him, whatever you have made through that name. So are you ready to risk it? Because there was a case of a hotel in Trivandrum. They used the name of a very famous line of hotels all over the world. And they did not make franchise. And they built the hotel, and the hotel was doing well. The original owner, they knew about it, they kept quiet. But when this hotel started gaining profit, they brought up a case, and this man was bankrupt, because he had to give the hotel and all the compensation and damages. So is it worth the risk? Shine?
Yes. The next question, how I have to claim my work when someone has copied my work?
Oh, if someone has copied your work, you have to show that you've published it earlier than him. That's it. If you can prove that, then you have a stand.
The next question, what is the key difference between copyright and patent?
Patent is in a product or process which is tangible. Copyright is only on concepts and ideas, on literary, like movies and songs and all those things, software, which is not tangible.
Any new methodology can be under patent? Can we can we patent any new methodology?
No, you cannot. No, because we have product patent. The product patent is there. Any process you adopt, if the end product is that, you cannot.
The next question, just one sec, ma'am. What is the key? Sorry, book being tangible, will it be copyright?
Anything intangible.
It's intangible.
Yeah, intangible is what is normally comes under the purview of copyright. Not
Okay.
everything it has to. Yes, see, it is what you publish, where the public has interest in it. If the public has no interest in it, no one has any interest in it. Even you will not be interested in it. So the end, see, one should realize patent, trademark, copyright, it is all profit motive. If the profit motive is affected, that is where the dispute comes in. Otherwise, no one has any problems with it.
Next question, how can we make patent litigation less time consuming?
How less time consuming is, you should be very clear about your product, and you should know why. Yes, hello? Hello?
Please continue, ma'am. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, that is actually for your patent agent. He will be doing it. That work is to be done by the patent agent to see that your patent is perfect. And if it is not, then it's better not to apply for patent.
What is the scope of IP litigation in Kerala?
Oh, very good. Not in Kerala, you might not be very good, but all over India, yes, it is, because people are just getting to know about it.
Patent we file in all countries. Patent we will file in all countries. Yeah. If I will file in India, what about in US? Okay. Whether we
Oh,
should file in each country.
I think
Yeah.
Rao sir already
Rao
told
sir. Yeah.
you have got a patent cooperation treaty. That means you have to file. You have to file separately in US, or you can go to PCT and give in the fees and get it registered there. So every state has its own rules and regulations.
Request all the participants to be muted. We have 3 more questions, and moving to the next question. Which type of products can be patented?
I think it's a repetition again.
Yeah,
Right?
it's just a repetition. Ma'am, actually, book is tangible. Why is it comes under the copyright rather than patent? She had
Yeah,
already answered. Yeah.
that is the act. Act says like. Okay. What
Yeah.
which is
I believe that we have answered all the questions, I believe. So we'll take the last question. In case if you have any more questions, we will take one more.
I'm not clear. What is it? He said I'm not clear. On what point is it?
Ma'am, actually book is tangible. And why is it comes
No.
under the copyright rather than the patent?
Okay.
Yeah.
See, the book is tangible. Okay. But the story is not tangible. Okay. So that is the difference. Yeah? So it's a story which touches you, not the book. Whatever beautiful format the book might be there, it will not attract you. It is the story. In the same way, product. If you like the fan, you take the fan because it's helping you functioning it. It's fun because you want a fan or an AC. It's the function part of it. So it's a product. So there you're looking at the product. Here you're looking at the concept and the idea. So this is a patent. This is a copyright. Am I clear?
Perfectly,
Okay.
ma'am. Yes.
How do we protect our traditional knowledge? Is saying. Yeah, someone asked that. Yeah, we can, only the government can do it. We have a digital diary. We have a digital diary where you bring in where you write all the traditional knowledge, everything that we have. This process is still on. Wow, like that, and anyone trying to get any of the traditional knowledge patented outside India or inside India, this digital diary, which is open in the public domain, in the net, they can open it and check it and see whether it is there. If it is there, they don't give it. If it is not there, they can give it. So that is how they check it.
Can we have a single window system for the entire world, the patent registration in the next future?
Yes, you're very right. They're planning. WTO is planning about it. Yes.
There is one more question. Ma'am, what about plant breeding? Whether it can be patent?
Plant
And
breeding is actually brought under the Plant Breeders Act. You have an exclusive act where if you bring in any innovations, you are given protection. But that doesn't come under Patent Act. It comes under a different act altogether.
yes, ma'am. We have almost touched 48. I mean, 1548. So we will
Okay.
move with the. We will complete the question and answer session. And I, on behalf of St. Albert's College Autonomous, the Albert Center for Human Resource Development and Research, it was a wonderful session that we all had. In the last nearly one to 115 hours. It was wonderful, and it was a knowledgeable information, and it was just flowing like the water in the river. It was wonderful information that with your
Yeah.
vast experience, all the participants could understand a lot of things, and you have taken a great responsibility to associate with the St. Albert's College and shoulder the responsibilities with us. Normally, the second part is, normally the second part goes with the organizers, but you became like an organizer itself, or you became the part of organizing team, and you have taken a lot of responsibility in coordinating the things and making the arrangements. And on behalf of St. Albert's College Autonomous and on behalf of each individual, the participants, I believe that we have nearly 500 and something plus participants as of now in the live stream, as well as in the people who have joined in the participatory webinar room in here that we see here. But from the live, they can't ask questions. They can see the video, they can see the audio. So I have asked them to message me in case, WhatsApp me in case if they want to ask something. That's why I was asking from my point. Thank you very much on behalf of, once again, thank you very much. I extend our sincere gratitude towards Dr. Gift Human, ma'am, for taking a wonderful session for us. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for being with us. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much.
Dear participants, we have one more session. The session will be handled by ma'am. I believe that she have joined with us. Uh, from the People's tab, in case from the People's tab, in case if you could search Binu ma'am, it will be easy for you to pin her. Binu ma'am, are you here? Binu ma'am?
Hello, I'm
Yeah,
here.
yes, perfectly.
Yeah.
Now it's visible, ma'am. Request everyone to pin Binu ma'am. Binu ma'am is Dr. Binu Purnamodhan Cholail. She serves as an associate professor in the Government Law College in Ernakulam district itself, and she is one of the eminent professor over here in Ernakulam who deals with the copyright protection and the various IP part. So, on behalf of St. Albert's College Autonomous and the Albertian Center for Human Resource Development and Research, I cordially welcome Dr. Binu Purnamodam Cholail to carry on the session with regard to copyright protection and overview. I believe that you will be touching the trademark a little bit. Hearty welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Shine. And I'm happy to be associated with St. Albert's College with this webinar program. I'm happy that you have selected a topic on intellectual property, which will be of interest to many, since I know so many persons have joined the webinar today. So a very hearty good evening, good afternoon for one and all. Today I'll be dealing with an overview, a picture on the copyright law as we have in India today. Since you already had 2 sessions on intellectual property, I'm sure you know what is meant by intellectual property. So in the arena of intellectual property legislations, we have got several legislations, as Dr. Ramrao has been speaking to you in the morning, and all those legislation strive to protect the creative effort or the intellectual skills and the labor of the individual, and to give those persons who are the creators the benefit of their creations, which means that whatever is the economic benefit which they could create out of their own creations, the law helps them to protect those creations and to derive the economic benefits without it being infringed or exploited by someone else. So when we come to the copyright area, we have a legislation which is called the Copyright Act, which is enacted in 1957, which is enforced today, which has went on to different various amendments over the years. And copyright, you all must be aware of what is copyright, because in every book you read, and all academicians, I'm sure, are associated with different types of literature, article writing, and writing books, you have a copyright in the works you create, the books you create. So I've just witnessed some questions being asked about that being a tangible right or an intangible right. So a book is always a tangible object. So let me take an example for you. I have a book here. This is a book of Ruskin Bond. It's a storybook. Okay. So now this is tangible. I can touch it. But what about the contents of this? This is intellectual creation or the creativity of the author, which is enshrined in the words it contains in the book or in the print matter of the book. And that is the matter over which he has the copyright protection. So copyright actually protects the expression of ideas rather than the ideas. So it should be very clear, the ideas doesn't have a protection under the copyright law, but what is protected by copyright is the manner of expression or the way these ideas are being expressed. So coming back to this book, this is a book which you find is being written by a particular author, a famous author, Ruskin Bond, and he has the copyright. So which means that the author himself has published it and he has a copyright over the book. So the complete right over this book, exclusive right, it we can also call as the exclusive right. Copyright is an exclusive right which will be upon the author or the owner of the copyright. Okay. Now, in the case of, for example, that is in the case of a book, but sometimes in the case of, for example, take music, the lyrics part. So, for example, take a film song, which a famous film song, which you know about it. The lyrics part of it would be written by a poet, and there would be a music composer who has given music to it, and which has been recorded and been part of a film. So you find there are different persons, different types of creativity, different kinds of intellectual efforts being combined together in the final outcome of the film, in which music is a very integral part and in which we can have a separate copyright. So what do you find? For the lyric parts of it, the poetry part, the written poem, there can be a copyright for the lyricist, the poet, and the music composer has got a copyright as well. And as for all music, it is the music composer who gets the copyright. But when it comes into the film, anything which has been recorded along with the film goes to the producer of the movie, producer of the film movie, unless there is a pre-contract in which the contractual agreement, the rights are being segregated and separated. Or if you are painting, if you are a painter, you see a good painting, you paint something. And in the lockdown period, I know many of you must have been using your skills in create different creative manner. You've created some handicrafts, or you've created something out of your own skill and imagination. That creation is your own, and the right you have over it is what is called as copyright. So how does a person get a copyright? What are the different methods in which you can acquire a copyright? For example, you have written a book, you have written a beautiful story, and you have not published it. You have not taken any efforts to publish it. You have just have it as a manuscript with you, but you have not shown it to anyone. You have kept it very secret within your possession. If someone else comes and steals that copyright and publishes it in his or her name, then what happens is that you are losing your copyright, even though you are the creator of it. You have spent the intellectual effort in creating it. The person who has first published will be the person who will get the copyright. Because there is a provision in the copyright law which says that there are two methods by which a person can acquire a copyright in their work. One is by means of publication. Publication just means that it has to be brought to the notice of public. You cannot keep it for yourself without showing it to anyone. Then it won't constitute a publication. The moment you show it to someone else, or you read it out to a public, or you are showing it to a group of persons, that itself will be a publication. So publication is very important to establish the copyright you have in the particular work. So I know some of you must be remembering the film Ayal Kadeyudugeyana, in which the script which has been written by the leading actor in the particular movie was stolen by another person, and he made a film based on that script. So you find the copyright is now going to the person who has published it. That is where the law comes in and says that the publication is a criteria on which you determine copyright. And the next criteria in which you can acquire a copyright is by means of registration. That is, we have in the copyright law, we have got a copyright board wherein you can go for a proper legal registration. And once that registration is completed, following all the requisite regulations with regard to that, you acquire a copyright. Then you don't need, even if you keep it very safe within your custody without showing it to everyone, the moment you have registering it, you can acquire a copyright in your own work, which means that after acquisition of the copyright, you have a complete monopoly over your creation, an exclusive right to do whatever you want to do with your work, whatever manner you want to exploit your work, however you want to make it profitable, however you can to make it have a rewarding for yourself or to others. The exclusive right is given to the owner of the copyright. So copyright is actually, we call it as a bundle of rights. It's not an individual right, it is a bundle of right. There are several things which go hand in hand when you say a person has got a copyright. And this is actually a statutory right. It is not a natural right or a human right or a constitutional right, as what we know we have on being a human being. We acquire so many natural rights, so many human rights. So the copyright is not such a right. It is actually a creation by a statute, or that is what we call as a legislative enactment. So this legislative enactment, that is called the Copyright Act, has given this particular kind of right, which is called as a copyright. So what do you call this? Is a statutory right. And what actually does this copyright do? So once a person is writing a book and publishes it, he gets a copyright in the particular work he has written. Okay. Now he has the right to prevent all others from making copies of the work or using any work without his permission. Okay, which means that it is a negative right. Copyright is actually a negative right by which he can prevent others from exploiting the work, and he alone has the exclusive right to use it in a particular manner he wishes to do. So this is basically all intellectual property rights are basically economic rights, which means that these are the subject matter upon which there are a lot of economic benefits which are derived, which can be derived, and there are legislations which come to protect the creators of these intellectual creations to use those intellectual benefits for themselves, excluding all others. That is why we call it as an exclusive right, or we call it as a negative right. Now, the basis of this is that thou shalt not steal. Copyright base of the copyright is thou shalt not steal. So no one can appropriate the fruits or the labor of someone else without his permission or authority. Okay. So what happens? This protects the creativity of the persons, because they are able to derive the benefit out of it. Nobody else is coming to exploit the creations. You must have known that many painters like Van Gogh and others who have become famous, and their paintings have fetched tremendous amount of money only after their death. Okay, so while they were alive, all these creations did not fetch them any economic benefits. So this won't happen in the case of copyright. In the case of copyright, once a creator makes a creation, he is painting a beautiful picture, then he alone is the owner of it, and he can determine how the picture could be copied or communicated to the public or given for sale or rental or something else. So all those rights will be going to the copyright owner. So as I told you earlier that copyright is actually a bundle of rights. So what do you mean by this bundle of rights? So there are several rights, which is called as one is basically issuing copies, make copies. Copyright prevents others from making copies of the work. So what does it say? It gives a right to the owner to make copies of that work and to communicate it to the public. So in whatever medium he wants to communicate or whatever medium he wants to make copies, it is for the author alone to decide to do. So if you have written a work and you want to publish it in a website or to make it as an e-copy available, the person who is the owner itself should determine how that can be communicated to the public. So no one else should infringe. If anybody else uses that work, which is already in the copyright of someone else, we call it as a copyright infringement, or we call it as a piracy. Okay, then to perform the work in public, if it is a play or if it is a novel, you want to convert into a play or a cinematographic film, you want to make some adaptations, all that will vest with the author. Only with his permission can you stage that play or to make any adaptations to it or convert into a cinematographic film, or you want to, if you should translate it, then also it is only for that author who has a real authority to do all these modifications with regard to it. So all these things are together, we call it as a bundle of rights. And this are possible if anybody does any of these acts without the permission or proper license from the owner, then that means that he's actually infringing copyright, for which there is some punishments and penalties which has been described under the particular enactment. So now what you find is that there are different what are the different kinds of works in which there can be copyright? Basically, the copyright law has categorized them into major 3 categories. The first category is a long one, which includes 4 items like literary, artistic, dramatic, and musical works. And all the 4 works, this category of works, have a qualification prefix in the beginning. It is original literary, artistic, dramatic, and musical works. So what do you mean by the term original? Original works, all these works have to be original, and only then these works are eligible for getting a copyright protection. And the next category of work is called cinematographic films. So all kinds of recordings in any medium, moving picture has been recorded in any medium, it could be included in the second category called cinematographic films, and the third is sound recordings. So these are the different kinds of works in which there can be copyright. So the question you can ask is, what about a sculpture, or what about a handicraft work you have created? In which category does this come in? There's some questions which you can have. So if you have a computer program, I have not mentioned about computer program. There are several things I have excluded, which I guess you have already asked these questions to the earlier speakers. So now, when you look into different categories of things which you know can have a copyright, but which I have omitted in saying specifically has got a copyright, are also all included within the definitional ambit of these words like literary, artistic, musical, and dramatic works. So what is a literary work? What do you actually call as a literary work? A literary work in the common dictionary meaning, you refer to anything of literature, relating to literature, or any book or anything, any poetry, any travelogue, any autobiography, or something like that, which you usually call as the literary work. But coming to the definition clause of this act enactment, Copyright Act, we find that literary act has definition which includes the computer programs, compilations, databases, and all other things. So anything, even a football ticket which you have printed, or a cinema ticket we have got, has got a copyright. The best ticket has got a copyright. There are several case laws which have established that all these come within the category of a literary work. So the definition ambit of a literary work as per this legislation is very wide, and many things which anything in print you have before you can be brought under the ambit of literary work. And with regard to cartoons, which area will you bring those cartoons? The cartoons are now being grouped under the category called artistic works. And there is an important case law or a case which I think which needs to be specified. That is about V.T. Thomas versus Malayalam Manorama, which is a case of Bobbin and Molly. I think all of you must be knowing those comic strips, which has been published as a part of the Manorama Weekly, which was there earlier, in which this person was assigned to handle one comic column. The last page was devoted to him, and he was given the liberty to develop a comic character and to create those comic strips. So this V.T. Thomas, or it was who was very famously known as Toms, was the creator of this two characters like Bobbin and Molly, along with the other characters in the particular cartoon strip. And he has been handling that column for many years, still has retirement from Manorama. And this is a very, very, it was a very, what do you call, everybody liked this. And this was the main reason that people used to buy the Manorama Weekly. Now, after he has retirement, Manorama Weekly entrusted another of his employees to draw Bobbin and Molly and publish the same in their weekly. Now here V.T. Thomas or Toms approached the courts, claiming that he has the copyright over his creation. Bobbin and Molly are his intellectual creations, and he had been handling those comics for many years, and he's the person who is having copyright over these cartoons. So now, if a person creates a cartoon, he is drawing some figures in a particular manner and writing some dialogues, which these comic strips comic characters are speaking to each other, which actually comes in as a comic strip. Now, all this are his own intellectual creations, and he should be the owner of the copyright. That is the case. That is, if a person, for you have got the Archie comics, you have got the Jagged comics, you have got different other famous comic strips like Tintin and everything, which is written and graphics is already done by the same person, and that person will have the copyright over it. But in this particular case, there was some technicality regarding the appointment of the particular person, and this because Toms was an employee of Malayalam Manorama. And since he was an employee and he was asked to do it while in the course of his employment, and during his employment, he was asked to do a work, then he is working for his employer. Anything he worked upon during his course of employment and as a part of his employment is actually a part of the works of the creation. The rights over the creativity will go to the employer. That's only because of this employer-employee relationship. Otherwise, it would go to the creator, that is the Toms. So this is, I just told you this case in relation to bringing your attention to that these cartoons are also coming under artistic work. So when you look into the definition of artistic work, what comes to your mind is a painting or a beautiful image which has been captured in a particular canvas or something like that is what is usually have. But any graphs, maps, or any things, even a map or a graph or a chart, that is the definition which has been given in the Copyright Act, and all such things as categorized as an artistic work. So the definitional ambit of artistic work is very wide. So if you have drawing a graph of some mathematical calculation you have made or some analysis you have made during your research, the copyright over that will be given to you as an artistic work. Okay. Then you have the dramatic works, that is, you have the plays and all these things, which includes the recitations or anything which a person performs on the stage is also part of the dramatic work. So all these things, that artistic work, dramatic work, musical work, or literary work, is having a qualification which is very essential, that is originality. All these things, in order to have a copyright protection, should originate from a particular person, and that person will be having the copyright only if the works are original. If the work is not original and you're copying it from someone else and publishes in your name, then the criteria of originality will not be there and you won't be getting a copyright. In this, you have several, you must have come across several instances in which different persons have used another famous work or not so famous work in their own course of writing or doing some work and used it. For example, you must have heard about plagiarism in the academic circles and otherwise, which have come to be associated with persons and they have ruined their career as a result of it. One important case or instance which comes to my mind is that of Kavya Vishwanath. I think many of you must have read her novel, How Opal Mehta Got Loud, Got Kissed, and all that. So that is a book. She was a person who was aspiring for admission in Harvard University. And while she was preparing for it, she found she had a wonderful way of writing, which was very well appreciated. And she started writing this novel about a girl trying to get an admission into Harvard University. And she herself, as the Opal Mehta in the particular novel, had written it in a beautiful manner. It was a very nice book, and it was, even before it was being published, it was being, publishers got a huge profit, made a huge profit out of their work. And she finally got a Harvard admission based upon this added qualification she had as a writer also. After this was being published, what happened is that another person who had two books, that is one was by Second Helpings and another novel, which she claimed that Kavya Vishwanathan has used many parts from her work literally into her works, and this has come into a litigation in the American courts. And when it had come, there are certain quotations which is as such being incorporated by Kavya as it has been in the earlier books, and as well as the plot, as well as many things, similarity in the way the character was working, and everything had so many similarities to the other book. So what do you find, that an idea is not protected under copyright? I made it very clear. So Kavya could have written a work similar to another work which has been created by another person, but the manner in which it has been expressed, the way she expresses that idea should be in her own manner. That has to be original. Should not be just a copy of the way in which another person has used it in another work. Here, because it has been found that there are a lot of similarities, the way in which the same sentence has been taken, same paragraphs as such have been taken, this publishers then dropped publishing the book, and she had to pay a huge amount of compensation in that particular litigation. So likewise, we have different instances of plagiarism which come up. There's been another case, I don't know if you all know it. There's a case in which the academic community itself can associate with it. That is Fateh Singh Mehta versus O.P. Singhal. That's a case in which the University of Jodhpur, the petitioner, that is a Fateh Singh, was an MTech student in mechanical engineering, and he had, as a part of the MTech, he had to do a dissertation work, and he had done on fluid mechanics, some part of the fluid mechanics, and his guide was O.P. Singhal. So he completed his dissertation after his research on the particular area, and he got a degree and left. Later, after 10 years, his guide, that is the O.P. Singhal, used this dissertation and incorporated the same findings and the research methods in his PhD thesis, and he had submitted for his PhD. Now, his student, that is Fateh Singh, approached the court claiming injunction over it, preventing it from being published because he had the original, he had the person who had the copyright over it. Now, the question here which has been raised was whether a dissertation work written by the student as a part of his coursework is protected by way of copyright, whether it comes under the literary work, whether it can be called as a literary work. And the argument raised by the guide was that he was his guide and he had guided, so the ideas also belong to him, and hence the other person doesn't have the complete right, and dissertations does not have any copyright. That was his argument. And which the court, what the court has decided in the particular case is that dissertations, once it is printed and published, it becomes eligible for copyright as a literary work. It is a literary work, and his own research work is being what is reflected in his dissertation, and there is an originality. And the fact that this guide has used this for his own PhD thesis amounts to copyright violation. So there is one case in which, and there has been another case that is University of London case, in which what happened is that the issue was a question paper set up by the examiners for the universities, whether they have a copyright. So there are past question papers that have been complied and was being published by the university press there, and somebody else. So whether that is copyright is vesting with the university or with the press, that was a question which has been raised there. So when you are drafting a question paper for some universities, then you are the person who are creating the question papers and you have a right over the question paper. But when you do it for as a part of your service, as a part of work for the university is taking the copyright from you. So university is the copyright owner in the particular work, and in the particular case, what is decided is the university has the copyright over the work, and publishing the question papers as a booklet by someone else, by a press, would amount to infringement of copyright. Okay, so this, what I was trying to tell is all these are included as literary works, in which you find that this is part of what you call literary work, and it is protected. Now, when you look into plagiarism, so what amounts to plagiarism? Plagiarism is not exactly like copyright. Copyright is actually a statutory right, the legal protection, which is derived when a person publishes a work or gives a work for registration in the Copyright Board. You can use some quotations or something which has been written in a copyright work in your work, provided you mention the authority from which it has been taken. If the authority from which has been taken is mentioned, that doesn't even amount to plagiarism. But if you are quoting someone else without giving footnotes or indexing it to be the work of someone else, then there are two aspects. One is you are infringing the copyright, and the other is the plagiarism. Plagiarism, actually, the ethical aspect. You're not supposed to infringe, take somebody else's work and pass it down as your own. That is not correct. So let me give you some instances. For example, if a person is using some of the poems or sonnets from the Shakespeare's work, and for his work without giving credit to Shakespeare. Now here, he's committing plagiarism. But here, there is no copyright violation. Why? Because copyright is actually, Shakespeare has written the work, it is his original work, and he had the copyright, but there is a limit for which the copyright protection is available. And the period of protection for the copyright is lifetime of the author plus 60 years. Okay. So in this particular case, Shakespeare's copyright has expired and all his works have come to the public domain. So there is no restriction in quoting the works from copyright, but you cannot take that work and pass it on as your own. That is not correct. So here you find it is plagiarism. A person doesn't use it, but it is a plagiarism. It's a plagiarism, but it's not a copyright. So take another example. For example, somebody is taking down the lyrics of several songs, famous songs, compiling them, and publishing it in a website, his or her blog or website. Now here, no credit is given to the poet or the persons who have sung the song or the music composer. He's just compiling all these lyrics and publishing in his own website. Now, whether it is a plagiarism or a copyright violation, because he doesn't give credit to it, he's actually infringing his work. He's committing plagiarism as well as a copyright infringement, because that credit is not given to that person and you are using it for your own work. So both plagiarism and copyright violation is committed by the particular person. But suppose he gives credit to the copyright, the persons who have written the work, the music composer of the work, but publishes the lyrics of the particular songs in a website, mentioning that it is written by the particular person and all those things. Is there any violation? Is there any plagiarism? There is no plagiarism, because the credits have already been given. He's not passing on these things as his own, but as the works of someone else. So there is no question of plagiarism. Then is there a question of violation of copyright? Yes, there is a copyright violation, because the communicating, what he is doing by putting it in a website, he's communicating it to the public. And communicating a work to the public is actually a right, an exclusive right, which is available only to the copyright owner. So by communicating it or putting it in a website, he is violating the copyright owner's right. There's an infringement in the particular case. So I hope I could make a distinction in between what is plagiarism and what is a copyright violation. Okay, so this is with regard to the originality. When I was discussing with regard to the originality, I thought I'll explain this along with originality. What is an original work? So an original work should always come from the owner. It should be his or her own intellectual creation, the skill, the efforts they have put in, which is crystallized either in the form of a literary work, an artistic work, a dramatic work, or a musical work. So only then these four categories of work need this qualification of originality. In the next two categories, which I mentioned earlier, that is the cinematographic works and the sound recordings, this qualification of originality is not being included. So that requirement of the originality is not there with regard to the next two categories of work. And now, the other thing which I was telling you about, the period of protection. The period of protection was different in different countries earlier. And now with the copyright conventions and with the GATT agreement, what do you have? You have got a uniform protection period, which every state is required to comply with according to the international conventions. And now we have the uniform state, that is every copyright owner has the same period of protection with regard to his copyrighted work, that is the lifetime of the author plus 60 years. So after the lifetime of the author, after he dies, his legal representatives or his legal heirs will acquire this copyright for the next 60 years. So once a person has got the right of the copyright, he is like any other right. Like when you own a property, a landed property, or you own a house somewhere, the owner has a right to dispose it, give it on someone else free of cost, or to donate it to some organizations, or leave by will to someone else not related to him. So he has the right of disposal in whatever manner the owner can with regard to the landed property. Likewise, in the case of intellectual property also, the owner of the intellectual property has got a wide range of freedom with regard to what he wishes to do with regard to over the intellectual property he has. So he can decide, for example, if I have written a book, and I want to publish it in a magazine but that is chapter by chapter. It has been published in a book. That publication, that decision, the ownership is vesting with me because I'm the creator. I can decide to publish it in the magazine. I can decide to publish it as a hardbound book or a paperback volume. I can decide that it could be translated into some other work and assign, that is by contract, give that right to someone else to translate that work into another language or more than one language to different persons. I can give it to someone else to be adapted and made it into a drama. So whatever I want to do with regard to the work, it is only within the discretion or the right of the owner, and it is only with the permission that anyone else can make use of the property. But so if a person wishes to give a right to another person, if I have written a book, but I cannot take the burden of publishing it, I can by contract assign that right to a publisher and accordingly give him the right of publication, right to communicate the work that I can go give to someone else. So that this assignment is also a legal assignment, and that is by contract I can assign the right. Now that the assignment will fix the royalty which should be paid to the original owner, and that is the economic benefit the owner will have. So if you have several books by different publishers, the publishers will be protecting the copyright without without making sure that nobody else infringes that copyright. Okay. Now, if anybody else makes a copy of the work, that will amount to infringement of the copyright. So there is an important case in this, which has recently happened in India, that is with regard to the Delhi University case, which is popularly known as the Delhi University case, or which was a case against a photocopying service center in Delhi, that is the Rameshwari Photocopying Service Center. What happened in this particular case is that the Delhi University, what they used to do is that according to the syllabus, they used to collect the material, the course material for the particular syllabus from the different books of various renowned authors. And after collecting these materials, they used to compile it and supply it to students. Okay. And this books ranges from the well-known publishers like the Oxford publishers, Cambridge publishers, Taylor and Francis Group, and likewise all big publishing houses books were being used, and the copies of the same was being taken by the university and made into the course material. And this Rameshwari photocopying services shop was the shop which used to make copies of all these works. Xerox copies was taken from this, and this was sold to the students. Now, all these big publishing companies came to know of this large-scale copyright violations being happening in the Delhi University and filed a case against the Delhi University. Now, in this particular case, they had inspected the Rameshwari photocopying service centers and found that all these which has been alleged in the particular case was right. There was innumerable course materials from various authors which has been taken and has been xeroxed and being supplied to different courses which has been conducted in the university. Now, if a person makes a copy, a xerox copy, if I make a xerox copy of a book and I sell it to someone else, then that is an infringement. So you might all have noticed that there are several pirated books of famous authors available at cheap price on the roadsides. The street vendors have been selling such books at cheaper price. The quality of the paper is poor, but those are available at a cheaper rate than the original work. Now, those books are all pirated versions, which has been printed by someone else than the original publisher, so that the economic benefit of these making copies doesn't go to the original author, but goes to the person who is now making the money. Now that all that is amounting to copyright violations. So what happens in this case is that if anybody is taking copy of these published works, renowned authors' published works, that is a violation of the copyright. But there is another provision in the Copyright Act which has brought in an exception to this exclusive right. There is monopoly right. That exception is that there are certain categories in which the people can make use of that right without constituting infringement. So what you find is that is actually in which the monopoly right of the copyright owner is given an exemption, in which several categories of things are exempted as not constituting infringement. And for this, one is for the educational purpose, private study or research purposes is an exception. The first exception we have is that in which this anything for educational purpose or the private study, you can take a copy for your own study purpose, but it should not be for a sale or offer for sale or something like that. Here, what the university has contended in the Delhi copyright case is that they have used only for this educational purpose. It has been sold, made available to the students at a lesser rate, only taking the charge for the Xerox, getting the paper rates of the paper and the Xerox charges. It has been sold for any profit making, only making it available for the students, and it comes as in the exceptions, which we call it as a fair use doctrine, and it should be exempted. So the Delhi High Court had accepted this argument and held that making available such photocopies to the students does not constitute infringement of the copyright, and it actually comes with the exception called the fair use exception. So there are different exceptions which has been carved out of it. So what we find, the basis of this exception is that actually all these intellectual property rights are creating private interest because it is vesting upon one individual or a group of person. The patent, the trademark, copyright, everything, trade secrets, everything is actually those benefits which really vest in certain private individuals. And they have the monopoly right over that particular intellectual creation, and they can decide what to do with that particular creation. So this monopoly right or the exclusive right might make the matter unavailable to the general public and which will hinder the purpose for which the intellectual creativity was actually created. So it would not be communicated to the public as much as it would have been if it has been sold at a very higher price or it is not been made available by pre-publications or more publications, copies being made available to the public. So what you find is that the private interest, concentration of private interest in the hands of certain publishing companies or intellectual property owners might hinder the progress of the society, which will not make the inventions available to the general public. It will not inventions, the literary works or the copyrighted work is available to the public. So that sort of restrictions can happen to society, and the law tries to balance the public interest with the private interest. There will be a lot of persons in the public, among the public, who are unable to shell out a huge money for buying these things or getting those products by paying a huge amount. So the public interest is always coming to the forefront, and the government has to consider this public interest. You must have earlier listened to the exceptional categories of inventions which are not patentable, which has been given to you in detail by Dr. Gifty ma'am, in which she has said that certain inventions are not patentable. You cannot get a patent on certain inventions. All those exceptions, as these inventions are not patentable, are also being included so that the public are not derived the benefits of research and development in certain area, which will affect them too much. It will stifle their growth, it will stifle their existence, and likewise. So that is why we find in the field of agriculture and horticulture, there's a complete ban on any patenting, because that is very much essential for the food security of the country, for the existence of the human population. So that is how the law has balanced the public interest with the private interest. So here also, when we come to the copyright for all intellectual property legislations, we have this balancing of interest somehow being made. Like in the copyright area, the balancing has come in the case of exceptions, which has been grouped in as a fair use or the fair use doctrine or a fair dealing, in which you find that any use for the private or personal use or research is an accepted category. So if you want to use a work for your personal reading, you can use a copy of it, you can make a copy of it. For example, you have bought a original CD of a film, cinematographic film. So original CD means you are paying, which has been published by the owner of the copyright, that is cinematographer, producer of the particular cinematographic film himself has given the rights to be sold it as a DVD or a CD, and you have purchased an original CD, then you get a right over that particular CD or to suite. So what is the extent of the right which is available to you? That is the extent of right which is available to you by purchasing that CD, even it's an original CD, is only for viewing it for yourself and your family members. You cannot circulate it by to a library, or you cannot circulate it to many persons, thereby causing a violation or making it screening is made in public, which should violate infringe the owner's right. So all these things you are purchasing, you can only use it for your private use or private study. You can use it. That will not, and make sure that doesn't amount to a publication or communication in the public. And if for criticism or review, you can use any work, and that is also a part of the fair reading. Then, with regard to the computer programs, I told you that computer programs are protected by copyright. I've heard several persons questioning whether softwares are patentable and whether it is copyright, why patent is not given, and all those questions earlier. But we find that Copyright Act had included computer programs very early as a literary work. And per se, a software is excluded in the copyright, but if it is embedded in a hardware or it is part of the business method process, then you have, it is being now patentable. The recent decisions have been showing that it is patentable in such a manner. But actually, copyright has expressly provided that computer programs are categorized as literary works and they are protected under copyright law. Now, if any person buys a software and he was installing his computer, then automatically that will be a backup copy will be made into it, or the system will change itself, incorporating the software in its hardware, and only then it can be used. So whether making a copy, so we have already seen that making a copy is the right of the owner. Making a copy of the work is a right of the owner, which the copyright has given to the owner. So when a computer program is made and you're making use of the computer program, a backup copy is made, whether it amounts to infringement. That is a very valid doubt everybody might have. But here what you find is the fair use doctrine or the exception has provided that making a backup copy or making a copy to make this software operable in your computer is actually categorized as an exception, and that is allowed. So if you want to have a backup copy, and in order to protect the software about being damaged or destroyed by any virus, that is also available, but you cannot communicate to the public or sell it or give it to someone else for profit. That is not there. So there are several exceptions which is being brought in as fair use. So what you find is that all these intellectual property rights are basically economic rights, which gives you an economic benefit to the owner or the creator. But in the case of copyright, there is an added right which other intellectual property rights does not give. That is called the moral rights. So this is provided in one of the sections, that is section 57 of the enactment, gives the added right, which is called the moral rights of the author, which says that the author have the right to claim paternity over the work even after giving assign to another person, even after assigning his right to another person. If anybody makes any distortion to his work, makes any damage or deviates from the work and presents in a different manner, the original owner can come in and prevent the other person by exercising what is called as a moral right. So the right of paternity, right to stop distortion or distorting the work, etc., are available as part of the moral right, in which we have got some case laws here. One is the case called the Manu Bhandari versus Kala Vikas Pictures, in which case what happened, what is facts of the case were like that. There was a novel called Aapka Bandi, which is a very popular novel. So one person had come to him, and he wanted to make it into a series of cinematographic film. He wanted to make a cinematographic film, and it was shown in the television. Now it was shown as in another name. So he had taken a proper assignment to be converted into a another medium. That was a valid contract was there, and it was a valid assignment which was been there. But what happened is that the person who was converting it to the cinematograph film changed the manner in which the character was behaving. He changed the dialogue, portrayed the character in a manner in which what the original author had tried to portray was not the manner in which he had adapted or changed, and the character was shown in a very bad light, as well as the dialogues were changed, and the end of the film was also differently shown. So here, the original owner, Manu Bandari, approached the court as violation of his copyright. So since it was a valid assignment and the copyright has been transferred to the other person said that he doesn't have any further right to interfere after this has been given to him. But here, the court said that there is another right which is available as called the moral right, and to show the character in a different manner than it has been originally devised by the owner is not possible on an assignment. That right of creation or the right of changing is only vesting with the original owner, and the second person doesn't have any right to change it, and that is called as a moral right. And in this, we have got another instance that is called another case law in which in Vignan Bhavan in Delhi, when it was being built, famous artist Amarnath Singhal, Amarnath Segal was authorized to create a huge bronze mural, which was prominently displayed as one of the major in the Vignan Bhavan. That was he took 5 years to complete that mural before it has been fixed to the wall in Vignan Bhavan, and that was in 1957. In 1979, what happened is, as a part of the renovation work in the particular building, the persons who were engaged in the renovation had took down this mural and had dumped it in some other room, and it was damaged while it was dumped there. So when Segal came to know the manner in which it was taken and being kept there, he wanted it to be kept back, and he had approached them with several letters, which was not addressed. And finally, he went to the court, Delhi High Court, and he claimed compensation, in which the court held that his moral right is actually vesting with the Segal, even after it has been handed over to the government of India, or it has worked for the government of India in creating the mural. And he was ordered to be paid a compensation for infringing the moral right of the author. A very huge amount was given as ordered by the court as a compensation to be given to the author. So what you find is that this is a very important right which is acknowledged by the court and being considered in several instances. And another important case, a very interesting case, which is there recently, is the case of Naruto. Naruto is a macaw, a kind of monkey, which has been seen in the forests of Indonesia. So what happened in this particular case is, David Slater, a renowned wildlife photographer, had gone to the forest in Indonesia, and he was trying to photograph these macaws. Okay, Shine? Okay. Can I continue?
Please, ma'am. Yashoda Rajan, can you please mute yourself? You are disturbing the presenter. I'm really sorry, ma'am. Please continue.
Okay. So in this case, what happened is that this Naruto is a macaw, and there were a lot of Narutos there, and he was trying to shoot these macaws. Now, what he did is he fixed the cameras and all the photography equipments in place, and he went and hid somewhere else. So these macaws came and started inspecting these photography equipments, and they were clicking the camera and making pictures. So one of the macaws posed himself in a very funny manner and he clicked the selfie. And when later on, when David Slater processed these photographs, he found one photograph of this macaw as very beautiful, and he was circulating it as his own photograph, and which was widely acclaimed, and he was getting a lot of royalty out of this venue. Now, what happened is that PETA, that is the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, that organization came against this David Slater, filed a case against Slater, saying that this photograph is not shot by David Slater or the photographer, but by the macaw itself. So how can David Slater claim a copyright in it? So the doubt is, the copyright should vest with the macaw or the narrator, which is commonly known as the narrator's case, Naruto. And David Slater is actually not able, is a person who can claim a copyright over the work. So what is this is photographs. How is a photograph considered as a copyrighted material? It is included in the category of artistic work. So if you go to a studio to take your passport size photo and you click that, the photographer clicks your picture, actually, who has the copyright in it? The copyright vests with you because that is a contract of service. You are employing, you're seeking his services for doing it, and you're paying the money for getting yourself being photographed. Remember the case in which Bobbin and Molly, V.T. Thomas case, the court has decided. So the same principle applies here, and the copyright will use. So he cannot use that photograph and being shown as a prominently in his studio. All that is copyright violation. Your copyright is being violated. But if somebody is clicking a picture of a scenery or a thing in which nobody has a copyright, the copyright goes to the photographer, and the manner in which the photo is taken is actually considered as his own. So now the question is whether it has originality. For example, a sunrise is being shot by a person. All sunrise can be similarly being shot by different persons. And what is the element of originality which can be there? And I've already told you originality is one of the essential requirements for having copyright in the case of literary, artistic, dramatic, and musical works. So what is the element of originality? The manner which one person clicks a particular shot is different from the manner in which another person adjusts his camera, and that is shown in a different manner. So each person will get the originality over such scenic arrangements. So copyright is vesting in the original order. But coming back to the narrator's case, the question was before whether the animal can have a copyright. It's one major issue the court has had to answer is whether an animal can have a copyright, and whether the equipments was being kept there by the photographer, wildlife photographer. He had made all the arrangements in which that could be shown. So whether he has got any right over it or whether it is going to the animal. That was a question here. But before the court could decide on this issue, what happened is the lower court has given it in favor of the photographer, saying it was his equipment, he has adjusted it, and everything was done on him in such a manner. So mere clicking does not make it go to someone else, was the decision of the lower court, but it went on appeal to the higher courts. And before the decision of the higher court was given, there was an out-of-court settlement arrived at with the PETA and as a David Slander, in which what was the settlement is, he can publish the work as his own. David Slater, the photographer, can publish the work as his own, provided 20% of the profit of the royalty he gets out of this work should go to the benefit of the macaws in Indonesia, the protection of the macaws, and that has to be given by him from the royalty he receives. So that is an out-of-court settlement. So what you find here is that it's a very interesting case in which how copyright can change to one person to another. Even though the court has not conclusively come to a decision, we don't, and animals, as per the statutory provision, we don't find an animal acquiring a copyright as entered in any of our laws. So that question was not, could have been made clear by a decision of the court, but that has not come into being. Now there has been another case in this regard is Associated Press versus Shepard Fairey. This is a case in which Associated Press published a photo of Barack Obama in 2008. And this was a very good picture of Barack Obama, which a street artist by the name Shepard Fairey, he took that image and turned it into a colored poster. He made it into a poster, and the poster was widely acclaimed, and that has been used as a hope poster for the first presidential election campaign by Obama. So there is a widely circulated and widely used poster of Barack Obama, which was actually shot by another person at AP Associated Publishers, Associated Press, but it was done by another person called Shepard Fairway. So now here, what happened here is that Associated Press went to the court claiming that this is not his original work. Actually, the copyright on the particular photograph rests with Associated Press, and this was not his work, and he should pay the compensation. So you find that the originality of the copyright work determines who has the copyright over the particular work, and another person, if we make use of the work and makes changes to the original work and publishes its own, it's a violation of the copyright of the original author. So that is what we have with regard to this copyright, and we have got several other provisions, like as Gifty ma'am has discussed with regard to patent. We have got compulsory licensing also in copyright. That if a person owns a copyright in a particular book and he is not reprinting it, it has been printed once and it is widely circulated and it is widely acclaimed by anybody, and more and more persons are demanding that book be reprinted, and he is not reprinting it, then what will happen? Nobody can get a copy, nobody else can communicate it, nobody else can make a copy and circulate it. So in these circumstances, if a person withholds the original work, the copyrighted work from the public, then the law has got a provision which is in benefit of the public interest. That provision is called the compulsory licensing, in which any person who is interested and who have the capacity to make copies of the press, print it and make it available to the public, can approach the copyright board, and the copyright board will hold an inquiry after giving proper notice to the original owner of the copyright holder, and after hearing it, if it is found that the original owner is still unwilling to publish it, the copyright owner will grant permission to the other person who has applied for a compulsory license, and that person will be authorized to publish it at the rate fixed by the copyright board. So in India, we have got a copyright office situated in Delhi, and it is in the copyright office that we should go for registering your copyright works, your works for copyright. So there is a different procedure formality which has been prescribed for the registration, and once you comply with the registration, it's a very simple procedure, you can do it very soon. You have a definite record, official record, evidence that the copyright is in the person who has gone for registration. So in the case of other method of acquiring the copyright, that is publication, if the matter is being taken to the court, you will have to prove that you are the person who first published it, which also will depend upon very other evidentiary matter to prove that you are the original publisher. But if it in the case of a registration in the copyright board, then that is a valid registration and is a prima facie evidence that who is the owner in the particular work. And if there is an infringement, if the person violates the copyright of someone else, that we have got certain punishments prescribed. The punishments are in the nature of imprisonment from a few months to 3 years, and some fine and all these things. And there is also a criminal liability which is being there. So copyright violation is both, we have got a civil remedy, we have got a compensation remedy of compensation, as well as we have got a criminal remedy. So if a person is doing any of the rights which is available to the copyright owner without his permission or without his license, without proper authorization, that amounts to an infringement of the copyright, which if proved can give you a few months in jail and a huge lot of money as penalty, as well as whatever money you had acquired as by infringing the copyright, all that has to be paid as damages to the original owner. So these are the penalties in it. So I think I've exceeded the time by half an hour or so. So if Shine, shall I wind up here?
Ma'am, can we take some questions also?
Yeah, definitely.
I
Well,
mean, before that itself, the questions are there, I think.
okay.
Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
You can have the questions, please.
yes. Alamelu Mangal. Choosing the
Okay.
image that we need for the books, articles, it's difficult to copy the image.
Actually, you want to take the image which has been produced by someone else. That is a copyright infringement. The image is actually the artistic work. It's a creation of someone else. You cannot just copy and use it. You need to have the permission of the original owner. You have either you should have a proper license, you should take a license, or you should have the permission, written permission of the original owner to use an image. Otherwise, it will result in a copyright violation. You're not supposed to do that.
There is one more question from the participants. Patented materials always, I mean, it's high price. So who will monitor the price and control the things? That's a question.
The question is in the patents. Okay. With regard to the patented things, actually, as Gifty ma'am has very rightly pointed out, the patent holder, who has taken the patent, we call him as a patent holder, he will have a monopoly right over the patented goods. So it is an invention has to be commercially manufactured and made available. That is one of the requirements. An invention to be patentable has to be novel. It should have the utility. It should be capable of being produced commercially. So once a patent holder derives a patent, he has got an obligation to make it available by industrially manufacturing it. Now, it is for him to decide the price. What are the expenses we should incur with regard to the manufacturing process? He has to calculate and he will fix the pricing. As such, we don't have any mechanism in which that pricing is being evaluated by an external body and that is given to him. So it will go by the market, the law mechanism in the market, how the similar products are being marketed and what is the pricing of it. So that will be competitive marketing. What we have in it, we have this restrictions will be by the laws of the market. Otherwise, there is no regulation as such now.
If the copyright of a journal paper lies with the author, can the author give the paper to be published in a book by another publisher, like a book with the compilation of published works as its chapter? If so, then what about the final copyright of the paper?
Okay, that's a very good question, very interesting questions. I'm sure many of you would like to know the answer. That is, when you give an article or a research paper for a journal to be published, if you look into it, there is a printed agreement, you already agree to it before you send it. And that is what we call as the agreement in which they get your permission by which you give your material, article or your creation for publication. Usually when they publish it, they take the copyright from you. Otherwise, they can't publish it. Okay. They have the written consent from you, and you are also consenting it to be published in the journal. So once you consent to that, the publisher or the journal or the publishers of the particular journal will have a copyright. Otherwise, when you hand over it, you should give only that right over that journal publication, and the rest of the right you can have for yourself, keep it for yourself. So the law doesn't say that you have to give the full right for the journal publication. It is upon you to fix the terms of the contract while you present it for the journal for publication. So provided if you had given given the copyright for yourself, other than a specific right to publication the particular thing, then you can publish it in a separate book. But what usually happens is that there is a standard form contract. They have a written format of a contract, but all these publishers, they just ask you to put your signature in which you agree to all the terms which they have already written and specified in the particular agreement. In which if you take time to read through the terms of the contract, it will say the complete copyright is being hereby handed over to the publishers as one of the clauses of the contract. So look into the contracts before you agree to the terms of the contract is what I would suggest.
The next question is with regard to the Creative Commons CC license. I believe that we are planning for an OER session, a separate one. We will reserve that question for that. In case if you would like to join for the Open Educational Resources CC Common, Creative Common licenses part, we will deal it separately. The next question is regarding, ma'am, in case if I use Google Images which are not commercial, can I use it for the educational purpose? Google Images, can I use it for education purpose?
Yeah, that is true. So educational purpose is an exempted category. So that is kind of the exceptions to the copyright. So if you're taking any image, if you're taking any graph, if you're taking any material and you're using it part of your presentation in your classroom or for the education purpose, that is allowed. That is coming under the fair use and that is possible for the study purpose, you can use it. But if you're using that image and making it part of your presentation without giving credits to the Google, and you are publishing it in a website, then that publication is comes within the ambit of communication to the public, not to a specific classroom to which you intend to communicate originally. Then it will violate this fair use doctrine. It will not be coming under the exception category.
And there is a real life question. Say, for example,
Okay.
a low cost book which is available in the roadside, in case
Okay.
if I have taken it, and if the copyrighted author observes, what will be the next steps of the author?
Okay. So if the original copyright owner comes to see that you are purchasing a book, pirated version book. Okay. So then what happens? The seller as well as the buyer both will be held as infringers of the particular copyright. So what happens is usually the person who can give a complaint in case of an infringement of a copyright is the owner himself. So usually the owner is not there on the streets when you buy a pirated version on the streets. So usually that it doesn't go into the complaint. So in this question is very interesting. The person has specifically asked that if the owner sees that you are buying a pirated book from the street, then he is witnessing it and it is up to him to decide whether he wants to go ahead with the complaint or not, because you are clearly committing an act of infringement, the seller as well as the buyer. By purchasing it is committing an act of infringement, and it's up to the owner of the copyright to decide whether he wants to go with a criminal complaint or a civil complaint or whatever he wants to do with that. Anything else?
I believe that we have to wind it up. I'm really sorry. Dear participant, now it's almost 15:06. That means we crossed the 5 o'clock, 17:06. Yeah. So we were planning to wind it up by 4:30. And now, it's only because you all are so much interested, and I can see a lot of thank you message for ma'am. And I just want to share a wonderful, the way that she took the session. I was actually surprised when she was sharing with a real life example, which is so relevant as well as so lively ones, which is presently everyone is aware about, but not to the conceptual level. As a problem, everyone was aware about all these issues, but they don't. We don't had a clear-cut picture on the issue. So, on behalf of St. Albert's College Autonomous and all the participants, especially the Albertian Center for Human Resource Development and Research, I extend our sincere gratitude towards Dr. Binu Purnamodan Cholail, the Associate Professor of the Government Law College of Ernakulam. I believe that she had done exceptionally well by sharing a knowledgeable session with us. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time and sharing the knowledge with us. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Continue.
I take this opportunity to thank all the resource persons, because I want to. I mean, I know that everyone's lockdown days are being scheduled, and it says that we might be exhausted with a lot of webinars in a day. To be very frank, in between our break hour, I was actually attending another webinar where I was a participant, not as a host, but as a participant. So I believe that everyone is doing the same, exploring the knowledge, and going to find the things in their own streams. So I want to quote all the faculty members, especially the first faculty who shared the introductory overview of the intellectual property right, Dr. S. Ramarao sir. From the day, I mean, from 8:30 a.m. onwards, he was with us, and it went to 11 our time. That means 8:30 a.m. in US. It was somewhere around 9:30 or 10 in the night, and you could guess by 11 means in our time he should have been in the bed. But he was there with us for more than 2.5 hours, explaining about the introductory overview of intellectual property, and he had given a very clear cut concept of the history of intellectual property, right? How it evolved and everything. He was a former director of the World Intellectual Property Proprietary Organization (WIPO), where he installed at New York. And later we were joined with Dr. Gifty Uman, who shared about what is the patent foundation and fundamentals of the patent law. She also shared a valuable information with us. She was the key person who coordinated everyone and helped me to find out the faculty members, the resource persons throughout the program. And in between, we made a decision that Advocate S. Sasi Shushant, we have reserved him for another webinar. It's a webinar because we with the three faculty we have extended to a lot of hours, and I believe that everyone will receive an invitation towards the webinar of Advocate S. Sai Sushant in a later date. So once again, our beloved Dr. Binu Purnamodan Cholail ma'am, I extend our sincere gratitude towards the wonderful session that you had. And my dear participants, I know that it's an extensive time. I mean, it's extended like anything, but it was more knowledgeable. That's why I never intervened in between to control the timing. I thought that we should, as it should be a free flow of knowledge. It should be a free flow of knowledge. And even after the sessions, normally after the sessions or after the talks, people will leave. Instead, the people were asking questions. So it proved that my decision was right, or else the people might have, I mean, we won't have the people. I believe that we have 485 people listening to, attending the program. So that's a big achievement for us all. That means they are eager to understand the IPR part, the IP, the intellectual property. That's a wonderful sign that India is leading to. It's also a mark of innovation and the healthy practices that we have in intellectual property. So once again, I extend our sincere gratitude towards all the participants who had participated throughout the session. And I know that it's a very lengthy sessions, there might be internet issues, and your phone or the lap might break down in between due to severe heat or so things. We could understand all those things. In spite of all these things, many people rejoined the program. That's the thing that I have noticed. I can see many have left, but in between they have rejoined. I want to appreciate that rejoining part. That's happens. That's a wonderful thing that you are all rejoining because of you want to know more about intellectual property. So once again, I extended our sincere thanks to all the participants. Just giving two information further. One, with regard to the feedback and certification, you will receive the details only by tomorrow, because we have limitations in sending the number of emails per day. So as you are all aware, we have a lot of programs queued, and it's been pipelined, and we have a lot of webinars that had happened. We had nearly 26 webinars and 3 international seminars and 2 national level seminars that happened during this lockdown period. So it's an extensive work. I mean, it's a really tough work for us also. But we have processed everything, and we are the documentation team is working on the certificate part. So once maybe by tomorrow onwards, you will be receiving the feedback form and other things. Maybe within 15 days, I want to keep it as a safe buffer time. That's why I always say that from 10 to 15 days. Within 10 to 15 days, you will receive the certificates. It's only because of the limitation that is there with regard to the Gmail number of emails that we could send in a single day. All right. So we could send up to 1,500 emails per day. But invitation of today's program, I have done it 2 times. So that means 654. I have done it 2 times. 13,000 emails have been, 1,300 emails have been sent already. So I can't send any more emails on today. I believe that you have not at that point. So I could do it on tomorrow. So the invitation as well as the certification, feedback, and those processes cannot be done in a same day itself. That's the reason. So please bear with us, but I ensure that you will receive the certificates within 10 to 15 days of the concerned webinar. Thank you very much for joining with us. Please stay tuned and follow the page called elearning.alberts, ALBERTS, alberts.edu.in. That is a page of the St. Albert's College Autonomous. You could see all the webinars that we have hosted, all the national seminars that we have hosted, and all the international seminars that we have hosted during this lockdown period. We are not going beyond the lockdown period. And further, the notifications of the future programs will also be shared in the same page. There is a faculty development program which is in pipeline from May 25th onwards. We have a 3-day training program on OER. We have scheduled 1-day program for online teaching and learning process. And there are a lot of things that is being pipelined. So please stay tuned in our webpage, elearning.alberts.edu.in. Repeating, e-learning, ELEARNING dot Alberts, ALBERTS dot edu.in. In the chat box, you can see that link. I have shared the link of St. Albert's College in the chat box, elearning.alberts.edu.in. You can still see a lot of thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shine.
Once again, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank
Once
you,
again,
Shine, and thank you,
I have shared.
participant, for the listening very, very well. I took a lot of time, more than it is allotted to me. Thank you so much, participants. Thank you, Shine, for giving the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Gifty ma'am is still here. Thank you very much, ma'am, for participating throughout the seminar. That makes the difference. I normally joins when I am being called for. Maybe as a resource person in the concerned time when I am called for. But you stayed from, you joined with us from 8:30, and now it is 5:17 in the eve. And you stayed from the morning towards the end. And Dr. Binu ma'am also joined with us in the early morning. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my dear participants. Thank you very much. On behalf of St. Albert's College. Thank you. Good day. Bye.